family disappointment. Turns out I was just the family ATM they never got to use. Well, now the ATM is closed permanently, and it's time to collect all the fees they've been avoiding. I will update again after Monday's meeting. This is far from over. Final update. Hey Reddit, it's been about 2 months since my last update. A lot has happened, and I wanted to give you guys the final chapter of this whole mess. So that Monday meeting with Mr. Harlow I mentioned, it was eye-opening AF. Turns out the situation was even worse than we thought. Not only had my family been taking rental income that partially belonged to me, but my dad had also been using the properties as collateral for business loans without disclosing the trust's existence to the banks. Mr. Harlow laid out 3 options. Force the sale of all properties and force the sale of all properties and split proceeds based on ownership percentages, have them buy out my shares at current market value, set up a formal property management agreement where they keep ownership, but have to pay me back rent plus ongoing income. I decided to go with a modified version of option 3. I am not trying to make them homeless, but I am also not just going to let them off the hook. Day after our meeting, Mr. Harlow sent over the formal terms. My family had 1 week to agree or we'd proceed with option 1, forced sale of everything. Guess who showed up at my apartment that night? All of them. Mom, Dad, Kevin, and Amanda. I didn't let them in, just talked through the door with my security camera recording everything. Mom was crying. Dad was trying to act reasonable. Kevin was sulking, and Amanda kept glancing at her phone like she was itching to record. Told them I wasn't discussing anything without Mr. Harlow present. Dad got mad and said I was hiding behind lawyers instead of handling things like family. That's when I reminded him that he was the one who said I wasn't their son anymore when he threw my car keys at my face. Hard to play the family card after that. They left after like 20 minutes of getting nowhere. The next day, Mr. Harlow called to say they contacted their own lawyer. Progress, I guess. At weekend, something weird happened. I ran into my dad's business partner, Jim, at the grocery store. He seemed uncomfortable, but stopped to talk. He said the business was in serious trouble because the bank had frozen their credit line after learning about the ownership issues. Then he told me something that explained so much about why my family treated me the way they did. Apparently, my grandfather had originally planned to leave the business building entirely to me, not just 35%. He'd told my dad this years ago. My dad panicked and spent years convincing my grandfather that I was irresponsible, lazy, and couldn't handle it. The whole Peter is a loser narrative didn't start recently. My dad had been pushing it for over a decade. Jim had always thought it was strange how my dad talked about me versus how I actually was when I worked there during college. He said my dad had been terrified that I'd somehow find out about the trust and take everything. 2. About the trust and take everything. 2 about the trust and take everything. 2 days later, I got a text from Kevin asking to meet alone. I agreed, but chose a busy coffee shop and brought a buddy to sit at a nearby table just in case. Kevin showed up looking like he hadn't slept in days. He admitted he'd always been jealous because Grandpa clearly favored me while I was learning useful skills with Grandpa. Dad was telling Kevin that I was the family disappointment. Kevin actually apologized for kicking my stuff and said he'd been trying to get Dad's approval his whole life. I told him I appreciated the honesty, but it didn't excuse what he did. He nodded and said he understood. Before leaving, he mentioned that Mom and Dad were fighting constantly now, with Dad blaming Mom for provoking me by throwing me out. The next day, Mr. Harlow called.